Welcome to the Workology Podcast, a podcast for the disruptive workplace leader. Join host Jessica Miller-Merrell, founder of Workology.com, as she sits down and gets to the bottom of trends, tools, and case studies for the business leader, HR, and recruiting professional who is tired of the status quo. Now here's Jessica with this episode of Workology.
Even before the pandemic, it was a challenge to shop and learn about HR technology and services. COVID throws another wrinkle into things with conferences and events, maybe or maybe not, opening up in the near future. At Workology, we reach 800,000, yes, 800,000 HR and workplace leaders every single month with our podcast, newsletter, and online resources at Workology.com. I've been getting requests from many of you who are looking for ways to connect with different companies that will give you the opportunity to research the organization and learn about them before signing up for a demo or answering your phone. This interview is part of a series called HR Tech Insights for the Workology Podcast, and it's sponsored by Upskill HR and ACE the HR exam. It's an opportunity for you, the HR leader, to quickly learn about different companies, their solutions, the company size and verticals they serve, and a quick case study about the problems that they solve. Think of it as walking the expo floor, but without the free swag and cocktails. I know I'm sad too. The good news is that there's no travel or expense involved to do this. Each episode in the HR Tech Insights series features 3 7 to 10 minute interviews with different HR tech and service providers. Let's get started, shall we? Our first interview is Safwan Shah. He's the founder and CEO of PayActive, a public benefit corporation and certified B Corp. Safwan's mission is to bring security, dignity, and financial wellness to low-income workers. An engineer by training and a serial entrepreneur, Safwan has built his career around harnessing the power of technology to create a more equitable society. Hi, Safwan. Welcome to the Workology Podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about PayActive and the problem you solve for human capital leaders?
Well, thank you very much for having me, Jessica. PayActive is a company that invented a new way to pay employees as they earn. Now, with over 60% of American workforce living paycheck to paycheck, it's a big problem because employees end up borrowing money from check cashers, payday loans, end up paying overdraft fees, and they lose up to $300 a month on the average. So PayActive brings a B2B, a business solution, so that employees can access money they've already earned between paychecks. And this helps them avoid a lot of fees. And that's what we do through a technology solution.
I love that. $300 a month is a lot of money. And so that's just life-changing for a lot of the employees that you are helping through PayActive. I wanted to ask, what company size and or vertical do you find yourself helping customers in most?
So it has changed over the years. COVID has been a big reason for the change. Now it's almost every size company needs this service. Earlier on, we saw that larger companies, for reasons of recruitment, retention, and engagement, would offer our service of earned wage access to their frontline or lower income employees, but now it's across board. So we are seeing companies with over 50,000 people, all the way 40,000, 30,000, 10,000, and also companies with a dozen employees. So we partner with almost all payroll companies to make that happen.
I love that. Can you share a recent case study or an example of how you've helped customers with maybe recruiting and retention? You pick which one is best for you.
So there are a variety of use cases that we have seen. The biggest one that's happening right now is employers use the earned wage access or more frequent access to pay as a benefit to recruit employees as we return from COVID. So many companies advertise using PayActive as a benefit that we are seeing a lot of nowadays. Also for retention, employers have been using our service for a long time. Employees tend to stay longer. And of course, a lot of people with the gig work economy now growing so fast, a lot of employers use earned wage access as a way to attract employees who would otherwise prefer to work as a gig worker.
It's so interesting because you never thought that gig workers would be in competition with traditional employment, but that is very much the case. Do you have maybe a specific metric or a way that you've impacted one of your clients' businesses that use PayActive?
So we are also the service provider of Walmart, which is the world's largest employer, all the way, with a couple of million employees, all the way to companies with a handful of employees. So the metric that is always tracked is retention or turnover. And we see consistently somewhere between 30 to 50% improvement in turnover when PayActive is offered. So that's a big part of it. Recruitment, literally, it's impossible to recruit without PayActive. Now, what is the number? It seems like, the probability of or likelihood of hiring somebody when this service is there doubles. It's almost a gain of 2x, 3x. These are some metrics that come to mind for the employer.
Reducing turnover at that volume for a number of businesses who are traditionally high turnover and high volume, that is hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, if not millions of dollars in potential savings. Yeah. I know that I and our listeners would love to learn more about you and the work that you're doing at PayActive. Where can people go to connect with you and PayActive if they have questions or want to check out your service and technology?
The easiest way is, of course, our website, which is PayActive, PayActiv.com, without an E, of course, payactiv.com. Join us on LinkedIn. We are also PayActive there. So these are a couple of ways to immediately learn more about us.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Our next interview is Tony Jamous. He's the CEO and founder of Oyster, the company that believes that anything is possible remotely. As a distributed talent enablement platform, Oyster is making remote work a reality for everyone. In 2010, Tony started Nexmo, an API platform for building communication applications. Nexmo grew rapidly to $100 million in revenue in less than 5 years and eventually became public in 2016 after merging with Vonage. Nexmo hired people in over 50 countries, and they delivered a great employee experience for all distributed workers, and it was a major challenge. So this experience led Tony to appreciate and create Oyster. Hi, Tony. Welcome to the Workology Podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about Oyster and the problem you solve for human capital leaders?
Hey, Jessica. I'm glad to be here. Oyster is actually a distributed HR platform. So essentially, what we solve is that we enable companies to tap into the global talent pool. We enable them to hire anyone, anywhere, without the red tapes of coming with setting up an entity, finding a local benefit provider, finding a local accountant and a payroll provider, and a lawyer. So essentially, we enable them to employ people as quickly as 48 hours from the time they find them in over 90 countries.
Amazing. And I have, with the hybrid workplace, I'm hearing so much more about this. In fact, I was talking to an HR professional who had an employee move to Spain just randomly on a whim. So I definitely see, and I think our audience sees the solution that you offer and the technology and the platform to be able to do that.
Yeah, and actually during the pandemic, one of the new use cases we've seen is called employee diaspora, where people, let's say, used to work in London or in San Francisco, and they want to move back home. Home is in another country, and they realize actually they can be productive working from their home country, near their family, in their communities, and they don't want to go back. So their employer calls us to help them find a solution to employ that person compliantly and with great experience in that local country.
Is there a company size or a vertical that you find yourself helping customers in the most?
Yeah, so it's SMB to mid-market, so anything between 10 employee to 2,000 employees. This is how we define SMB and mid-market. And why? Because if you're a multinational corporation, you already have spent hundreds of millions of dollars of building your employment infrastructure in many countries. So you might not need us. But what we do is we enable any company, as small as it gets, to have the superpowers of a multinational corporation when it comes to talent acquisition.
Talent is everything. So I really love this and the work that you're doing. Do you have a recent case study or example of maybe how you've helped a customer?
Yeah, so actually, recently we had a customer that found Mary in Greece, a great product manager. They wanted to hire her, but Mary didn't want to be a contractor. Mary wanted to, in Greece they have high level of social security. They get benefits from the government, so it was important for her not only to be compliant and pay her taxes, but also to benefit from the country's benefits. So that company started by looking at setting up an entity in Greece. And that means at least 3 months process, finding a lawyer to set up an entity, draft the employment contract, find a payroll provider to support to be compliant in payroll and pay on time in Greece. It's also knowing what kind of benefits they want to offer her to be a competitive employer for Mary in Greece. And then, so they came to us saying, well, can you help us solve that problem? And with us, it's actually a few clicks away. So we have already implemented an employment infrastructure in 90 countries in the world. And through our self-serve online platform, they go and they hire Mary through that platform, and Mary receive an email, she get onboarded into the platform, she get an employment compliant contract from Oyster in Greece. And then 48 hours later, she started working for the customer. So this is kind of really the core problems that we're solving right now. What we're doing is we're making a global HR a delightful experience, while today it feels like climbing Mount Everest.
I imagine that you are also able to help with things like time to fill, able to move quickly, but you can also see higher retention because people can be nomads working anywhere in any country in one of the 90 countries that you serve, and then work in business and their job still gets done.
Yeah, and we see that actually the attrition in the Oyster cohort of employees is actually 5 to 7 times lower than when you see in office or in country employment. And for a number of reasons, definitely the flexibility that the employment provides is number one. There's also if you think about especially emerging economies, they're not going to find an exciting company that really focuses on their growth and their development in their local market. If you're like the most brilliant software developer in Nigeria, the best job you're going to get is to work for a 100-year-old bank. So suddenly when you start tapping into the global talent pool, you quickly realize that 80% of the countries, you're changing their life when you offer them this kind of opportunities. And in my previous company, Nexmo, we were hiring in 45 different countries. And I took this company public. I stayed a couple of years and I left. And there are still people there that were coming from this employment platform that we built, 45 countries, that stays there because this is the best job they have in Argentina.
Well, I know that I and also our listeners would love to know more about the work that you're doing at Oyster. Where can people go to connect with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Tony Jamous. I'm actually developing increasingly a framework around distributed leadership and how can you get higher performance from a distributed team than an office team. And then you can visit our website, oysterhr.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tony, for your time.
Jessica, thanks for having me here.
This is the Workology Podcast, and this particular episode is one of our new features. It's called HR Tech Insights, where we connect you to emerging and innovative and interesting HR technology services and providers. The Workology Podcast is sponsored by Upskill HR and ACE the HR exam. Personal and professional development is essential for successful HR leaders. Join Upskill HR to access live training, community, and over 100 on-demand courses for the dynamic leader. HR Research credits available. Visit upskillhr.com for more. Our final interview is Jeannotte. Julie is Officevibe's employee engagement expert and senior researcher. She brings to the table her extensive organizational development expertise to the benefit of their clients and evolution of the product. She is truly passionate about humans at work, and her background makes her have an innate curiosity that has given her a unique perspective on both the day-to-day challenges faced by high-performing teams as well as the development of positive organizational cultures. Hi, Julie. Welcome to the Workology Podcast. Can you tell me a little bit about Officevibe and the problem you solve for human capital leaders?
Of course. So hi to everyone listening. Well, at its base, Officevibe is an online platform that's built for team leaders. We help them build better relationship with their people and create the conditions for great work. So we do this with weekly pulse surveys, anonymous feedbacks, and smarter one-on-ones. So in essence, in a nutshell, Officevibe gives manager the full picture of their team's needs, successes, and their pains. And that in turn will help them take action to improve their team's engagement and their performance. So in other words, just because I tend to overcomplicate things, we've deconstructed the complexity of the science of employee engagement, which is a science, and we've made it super simple. Each week, employees receive a pulse survey that contains 5 questions to assess the 10 key metrics of employee engagement. And those questions are designed to engage employees and make them fun to respond to. And then when you combine that with the ability to provide anonymous or non-anonymous feedback as they wish, and have collaborative one-on-ones between managers and team members, our clients have all they need to create the space for real talk, which is the mission of our team of 76 of us based out of Montreal, Canada. And so that's our mission, just to create that space for real talk. And luckily and very humbly, the stats that we have are showing that it's working. 84% of Officevibers, which is what we like to call people who use Officevibe, well, they trust their managers. 4 in 5 Officevibers are clear on their goals, which is something that we touch on in the product as well. And 90% of Officevibers hold and esteem their managers' transparency, which is really great news. We need that in the world of work we live in. So in short, the problem that we solve, although it's much more complex than that, is this one: the problem of not knowing what your people really feel and what they need to be engaged and performing at work. It's as simple as that. I hope that answers your question.
It does, absolutely.
Awesome.
And you make it sound fun too. And I love the transparency and the structure. I think managers can absolutely appreciate things like that. I wanted to ask you if there was a company size and or vertical that you find yourself helping customers in most.
We do. I mean, we're at scale. We help really, really small businesses, and we have some really large clients, but over 2,800 companies across the world that put their trust in Officevibe, there's about 76% of them, so 3 out of 4 companies that are in the 1 to 100 employee size. So we're largely popular in that segment. So we could call that, depending on your definitions, but small businesses. The average number of employees across all of our clients is 138. So, in the SMB space. That being said, like I said, we have very large customers that get a lot of value from the tool as well. The bottom line is really this: Officevibe is an amazing and relevant stack of tools, whether you're the owner of a growing business without an HR team and your company is growing, you don't want to lose touch with your people or what makes your culture and company special. It works really well too, whether you're a team manager just wanting to bring out the best in your team, or you're an HR leader of a bit larger company and you know that your organization's culture requires some gardening to amplify what you already do, which works well, and your employees are engaged and you're able to retain your talent. Or I'm thinking of this remote world of work that we're not done with. You need to support your organization as structures are changing, ways of work are shifting. So it's really relevant across.
Do you have a recent case study or example that you can share of how you helped your customers, maybe with that transparency where employees and managers and leaders, they know what the employees want and can have open conversation?
Absolutely. Part of my job at Officevibe is actually to engage with our clients and conduct user research studies. So I've met a lot of people, and I'm really grateful to have really an ongoing conversation with a good bunch of our clients. But there's a pair of wonderful ladies that always come to mind just because, they're so relatable and so sweet, and I love their business. Amber and Annalise from Campminder. So Campminder is a summer camp management software. So in essence, they serve the day camp area, but they're in the computer software industry. They're based in the US. They have 55 employees, right in the size of businesses that, a bunch of our clients is in. Amber is the client support manager with 10 team members that she cares for. And Annalise is the head of talent and culture. And we've done case studies with both of these ladies, from their specific angles, both from team manager point of view and HR point of view. And Amber says that in her 4 years of experience as a manager, her biggest challenge has always been around what you just mentioned, understanding what their team is really thinking. And she says it's been, really difficult throughout her career to understand what's truly beneath that surface and getting access to that real feedback, that untold feedback that you don't get without using a tool like Officevibe, is the information you really need to be successful. You need that transparency and creating that safe space where your employees feel that they can be completely honest with you and share their needs and their aspirations. And she says that Officevibe's anonymous feedback feature is one of the tools that she uses the most. She says, just to quote her, you always just see things are good sentiment at the surface, but with Officevibe, creating that safe space for the team, it showed her that under the surface, there was a lot going on. There were many things that she didn't know. And so she said that it's really allowed her and her team members to build really strong conversations where they feel comfortable speaking up. She really definitely relies a lot on the tool. Needless to say that she understands that having engaged team members will have a direct repercussion on client engagement and the quality of service they provide. It goes hand in hand, right? Can't serve your customers well when you have disengaged employees. On that, she's got one of the highest engagement metric scores I've seen. So I mentioned that we measure the 10 key metrics of engagement, and one of the most important metrics out of that bunch is relationship with manager, right? Which includes communication, trust, and collaboration. And her score is 9.7 on 10. It's just amazing. I've never seen that. And so, yeah, she's really grateful for the tool. She uses it a lot. And on the flip side, for Annalise, who, as I said earlier, is the head of talent and culture, Officevibe is really the key metric for success. Like, she reports on it regularly, actually weekly, to the executive leadership team to prompt discussion on changes, whether good or bad. She says it informs a lot of what she does, both on a micro level and a macro level, and it really drives her people strategy. It's amazing to hear her say that Officevibe's helped her and the company prevent turnover and being able to continue to attract key talent. And I'm going to end my answer on a quote that I love from her. She says, "Turnover itself isn't very actionable, but what I love about Officevibe is that it gives us those insights while we can still do something about it, meaning the employee's still there. We can act before it's too late and we lose top talent." And I find that to be really compelling.
I love that, especially right now when I feel like people are making decisions to leave organizations.
Absolutely.
And you can't afford to lose employees, especially those great performers who are doing good work.
Right. Not only does it impact your bottom line, but the cost to rehire someone, but your culture takes a hit every time you lose the people that you've worked so hard to attract.
So you've mentioned turnover. We've talked about manager relationships and employee engagement numbers. Are there any other specific ways that Officevibe has impacted your clients' businesses?
Well, it really revolves around that, but I would say that our core value proposition really revolves around helping businesses, regardless of their size, deploy more effective people initiatives with agility across any part of their organization, just by intuitively measuring, segmenting, comparing engagement data to adapt in real time, which is something essential in the days that we live in, especially in their current context. As HR leaders, being one myself, we know that our top priority is cultivating a culture that will ultimately just help us retain and attract the best employees. And while it's our job to craft people initiatives that will make a difference, we don't always have that data and that feedback to support our decisions. We have feelers, but we don't have the data to support it. And therefore, we need to understand our workforce, both from a manager point of view at the team level, which is really where we've concentrated our efforts with our product, while still providing organizational level insights, which is where HR comes into play. And that's where Officevibe comes in very handy. It's relevant across all of the layers of the organization and has that impact. So to answer your question, I would say the biggest impact we have is by giving a clear understanding of workforce morale and engagement, which then in turn helps leaders in HR build strong and consistent company cultures with ongoing conversations, relationship training at scale for managers inside the product, which allows them to create an environment of psychological safety that promotes trust. And we all know the benefits of that. Stronger employer brand, which helps you attract, an increase in performance, productivity, and then lower turnover, right? Which is what all businesses want.
Absolutely. Well, Julie, I know that myself and also our listeners would love to learn more about the work that you're doing. Where can people go to connect with you and learn more about Officevibe?
So we're constantly sharing our content on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. So with @Officevibe. But if people really want the best of the best every week, they can join our community of 100K plus managers by subscribing to our newsletter. Just go to officevibe.com, scroll down and subscribe to our using our subscribe box. Essentially, it's really simple. So we send free guides, articles, interviews, real-time data about the modern workforce. Our blog is really full. We also invite everyone listening to give our tool a try. We have a free version and managers can test how powerful it can be to just ask the right questions. I really feel it's the best way to experience firsthand what we preach about. And you can connect with me personally on LinkedIn as we actively develop relationships with real managers, real HR leaders to really understand what makes them tick and what they need. It really shapes everything we do. Our users are at the core of what we build. So cultivating those relationships is really key. So please don't be scared to connect.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Julie.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this HR Tech Insights podcast series on the Workology Podcast, sponsored by Upscale HR and Ace the HR Exam. I know it is tough right now. It is so tough. And we're trying to make it easy to connect you with different HR technologies and service providers. I'm here for you. We're all about up-leveling, upgrading, and providing insights, information, and resources to the human resources and workplace community. My name is Jessica Miller-Merrell. Thank you so much for listening to the Workology Podcast.